Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video, and yes, finally, right, I'm actually got the camera on. I'm not feeling too great, I'm feeling a bit under the weather, but I thought I would make a quick video and I guess try to get my spirits up a bit, and put the camera on. Although, admittedly, this isn't exactly the most, uplifting thing to talk about. But I was watching this video. This is from Bounding into Comics, right? It says Guardians of the Galaxy, Guardians of the Galaxy actor Zoe Saldana calls for defunding police after police stop stabbing, which is of course the Ma'Khia Bryant situation, which I covered in two videos now. Right? One about the situation itself, and then LeBron James, in my opinion, race hustler response to it. Now, if you follow me online, you know that I've been going back and forth with a whole lot of people about this and calling out various people ever since news of this dropped. I really need to calm down with that. It actually is quite draining. But I wanted to address this particular part real quick, right? Because Zoe's tweet, right, highlights to me a very disturbing trend I'm seeing online as regards this situation, right? And it's what I would call personally the omission, right? There's a scene in Gargoyles, in the old cartoon Gargoyles, where Elisa and Goliath are talking about her brother Derek, who was forcibly turned into a gargoyle Black Panther hybrid, who was then going by the name of Talon. And Elisa um, tells Goliath, they're in a conversation about whether or not she should um, tell her family about what happened to their son. And eventually, Elisa says that a lie by omission is still a lie. And I think that's what's happening here. Because here's the thing. Here's what Zoe's, I believe this is the Instagram post, says, right? It says, there are no words for this unimaginable loss. Ma'Khia Bryant was a 16-year-old girl who loved doing her hair, who enjoyed doing TikTok videos. She was an honor roll student. She called the police for help. Instead of helping her, they shot her 4 times. Right? Say her name, justice for Ma'Khia Bryant, defund the police. Here's the thing. All of these things are objectively true. Right? Individually, they are indeed correct. She was 16. She loved doing her hair. She did TikTok. She was an honor roll student. None of these phrases in and of themselves, none of these sentences, none of these statements in and of themselves are wrong or dishonest or incorrect in any way to my understanding. This is all true. The problem is that while it's all true, it is not the whole truth, right? You know how they say, you have to tell what is it when you swear in, or at least back in the day, you used to swear in on the Bible in court and be like, I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, right? Well, here's the thing. This is missing the whole truth part. That, unfortunately, people like her and people like LeBron and people like politicians such as, Jesus, what's her name? Rashida Tlaib and Bree Newsom and many others are doing. They are painting this very one-sided narrative, right? You often hear this in the news from the family of the victim, right? My son, my daughter, was a good kid. They were an honor student. They were this, they were that. Okay, fine, that can all be true. But the circumstances that led up to their death can also be true and justified, right? These are things that can be true at the same time. And what I dislike about this narrative is, first of all, it tries to absolve the guilt and absolve the blame that the victim has in their own demise in this case. Because I've covered it in another video, and I'm certain at this point everyone's seen or heard of the footage, right? Even the next door neighbor has come out and said that he doesn't think there was any other way for this situation to play out unless the officer shoots Ma'Khia. And as I've said before, I take no joy, I take no pleasure in the fact that she's dead. It's a horrible situation all around. But the only way you avoid violence and avoid death in this situation is for her to not come back out the house with a knife and jump one person and then try to stab another. Okay? We would need a time machine and be able to go into the house, right, and physically hold her back and go, don't do this. If you do this, you will get shot. I am from the future. I can tell you what's going to happen. Please don't do it. Sadly, that is not possible in reality. Everybody keeps saying, why couldn't he shoot her in the leg? Why couldn't he tase her? Why couldn't he do this and do that? The movies are not real, right? It is not reasonable to expect in a real life situation that is unfolding, right, and that is completely out of control, for him to have the fit for the, let me grab my taser, or let me stand there and aim at her arm or her leg. Which, guess what? A taser is still a deadly weapon. Not as deadly as a gun, but it's still deadly. If it on her, it may not have even worked because she was a very heavy set girl, and that can actually make the shocks less effective. It might have, caused her pain, but it may not have stopped her, right? But let's say it does work. It can cause a heart attack and she's dead. You shoot her in the leg, you hit an artery, she's dead even faster now. Okay? These are not reasonable expectations. It is a terrible situation. It is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. But it's a tragedy she brought upon herself with her own actions, and to not acknowledge that, to want to paint this one-sided narrative about how she was a wonderful young girl whose life was violently taken away from the cops she called. Yes, she called the cops, and she also started the fight and started with the attack that got her killed. Two things can be true. Her calling the police does not absolve her of what she did that led to the end of her life. You no longer have the defense of self-defense if you come rushing out, attacking two people in front of a cop. Doesn't matter who called who. Once you do that, you are the aggressor, and you're an aggressor with a deadly weapon. And guess what? If someone else has a deadly weapon there, whether it's a cop or someone else, because you can have like a concealed carry in some states or whatnot, deadly force was met with deadly force. In this instance, it is justified. It's not justified in every instance, but in this one, it was. And to not acknowledge how she brought about her own death is to lie about both her life and her death, because her death demonstrated, because she caused it herself, demonstrated that for all these wonderful things about her, she had a murderous rage and capacity for violence that could have hurt people. She was ready to stab one person. She was ready to stab the girl in pink who wasn't fighting back against her, who didn't have a weapon, who was literally curling up like this. She was willing to attack a defenseless person. Now, some people say, well, she had been jumped, she had been attacked. Okay, that can also be true. It's not justification for what she did at the end of her life, which caused her death. Okay? It is her damn fault. It's that simple. Get mad all you want. Get mad at me all you like. I'm immune. But that's the situation. Unfortunately, her actions brought about her death, right? If she doesn't attack, no one gets hurt. No one gets shot. Everybody walks away. I wish that's what had happened, but it's not, right? And to not acknowledge what she did that caused her death is to lie. It is a lie by omission. A lie by omission is still a lie. And to paint this one-sided narrative because you don't want to give the officer credit for what he did, because you want to push this narrative of white officers hate and kill black suspects, is wrong, right? It is wrong. Being dishonest, especially in a situation where it really was life or death, is absolutely wrong. And I'm sick and tired of this intellectual dishonesty from people online, especially from politicians and celebrities who very rarely, at least in their adult lives, don't have to deal with this because they have the privilege of having personal police escorts and having bodyguards who will literally step in and take the blow if someone attacks them. So yeah, can we stop with the lying? Can we stop with the intellectual dishonesty of acting as if she didn't cause her own death? And let me explain something. This is gonna sound weird, but this kind of reminds me of the Chris Benoit situation. If you don't know, Chris Benoit was a professional wrestler. He had been very popular, well known in the pro wrestling fandom and community in the business. He had worked for all the major companies. At the time of his death, he was working for WWE on what was known as the ECW brand. And many ECW meaning Extreme Championship Wrestling. There's a long history here that I'm not going to go into. It was considered at the time because he had been on larger shows such as WWE Raw, which is the flagship show, and SmackDown, which is the secondary show, which typically airs on regular TV like Fox 5 now, but I think back in the days like Channel 9 or whatever, UPN, right? So ECW was seen as kind of like the third brand, and it was kind of considered a demotion for a star like him to be sent to that show. Shortly after that, we hear about that he, his son Daniel, and his wife Nancy um, had been murdered, right? And initially it was reported as a break-in and that he tried to stop it but was killed in the process, and then his family was killed. The Vince McMahon of WWE did a tribute show, and then shortly after the tribute show, it was discovered that actually Chris was the one responsible. He had committed a murder-suicide, right? He had killed his son Daniel, who was his youngest child. He had three. Daniel was his youngest child, his wife Nancy, and then himself, right? Now, I was in college when this happened. This happened in 2007. So I was in college. I was actually part of a web radio show in college with two of my friends at the time. It was their show, and I was sort of like the dirt sheet person. I got all the info and the rumors and whatnot. And it was hard. It was hard to hear. It's still hard to think about and talk about that. A guy you had watched on TV growing up, a guy who had always talked about how he loved wrestling and he loved his family and he hated the fact that his dream took him away from his family, it did something so heinous, right? You just don't think someone like that is going to do that. I mean, pro wrestlers die all the time, but they don't usually kill other people in the process, and they're not typically known for killing their own family members. But in this case, that's what happened. Two things can be true. Chris Benoit was an amazing pro wrestler. He was well respected. He was very talented. He was very dedicated to the business. He also murdered his wife, his son, and himself. I hate to say it, it hurts. I don't like saying that. I don't like that being how he died. I wish he never died. I wish none of them died. But that's how he died. If you're going to be honest about a person's life, especially if you're going to speak positively about them as regards their life, then in my opinion, you also need to be honest about how they died, especially if the manner in which they died was caused by them and they took or tried to take other people with them. You cannot be painting a one-sided story with these type of things when people's lives are literally lost. And you want to talk about say her name. Okay. Ma'Khia Bryant, 16 years old, loved doing her hair, did TikTok, was an honor roll student, tried to stab two people, was shot while she was in the act of trying to kill another person who was completely defenseless against her at that moment. That's the truth. That's the truth that Zoe and other people do not want to acknowledge. Okay? That's the truth. It's a hard truth. It's a bitter pill to swallow. But if you care anything about her, if you care anything about her family, if you care for anything about the black community and accountability, LeBron, then you need to be honest about the situation at hand. She caused her own death by attacking two people with a knife in front of an officer. And again, they want to about say her name. Well, here's the thing. I agree with saying people's names when they deserve it. So let's say these names. 1 second. Okay, so let's say their names then. Right? Let's say the name of Nyra Givens, who was only 13. This thing recording is going to better be recorded. Right? Let's say the name of Nyra Givens, who was only 16. Not 16. She didn't read what you're looking at. Who was only 13 when she was stabbed to death by a fellow classmate because they got into an argument. And now she's dead. Right? Let's say her name. Let's say the name if it loads here. Let's say the name of Jocelyn Adams, 7-year-old girl going to McDonald's in Chicago, gets killed. She and her father get shot up. Drive-by shooting, it seems. I don't know what quite what caused it. But she gets shot up. She gets killed. Let's say the name of David Dorn, right, who was killed last year during the riots, right, in St. Louis, right? Killed in the riots in St. Louis. Went out to defend a friend's business, never came home because he was shot in the head like a dog. Did his life matter? It doesn't seem to matter to politicians or celebrities or the BLM, but it sure as hell matters to me, for whatever it's worth. And Cannon Hinnant, 5 years old. Five. And he gets gunned down by a neighbor for no reason. Absolutely no reason to take that child's life, and yet his life was taken. So we're going to talk about, come on, Zoe and LeBron and other people. We're going to talk about saying names. Let's say their names. Let's keep their memories alive. And let's stop trying to fight in the name of, right? Let's stop trying to fight in the name of a young girl who tried to kill another black girl and was stopped by the sad but necessary actions of a white police officer. Let's start acknowledging the truth of the situation. If you care at all about her or black lives, then be honest. Anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.